um, especially in this painful situation here in the subcontinent. Just now I saw in the TV that the IS has taken responsibility for this, and they say they are retaliating for the killing in New Zealand. For the attack in the Muslim church. Now they are attacking the Christian churches. So this, we find a chain of actions and reactions and killings, and this goes on in this world. And we, all of us, have to understand our role. We may be glowworms, little insects, but we have a role. We have a place, and we have a great responsibility in this world. Our CCs and our URI movement, I think it has so much power within itself. I have great faith and hope in the URI movement as we are today. So we have a very important role to play, especially when we are going to meet as the staff and GC in 2 months. We have to think about our role and our responsibilities. So let us pray. Almighty Lord, as we start our staff meeting today, we commit ourselves under thy eternal guidance and care. We know we are insignificant beings in your universe, but we know we have some role to play. Please strengthen us, help us to do our duties, guide us, and we pray for all the bereaved families and all the people in Sri Lanka and in all parts of the world. Help us, guide us, strengthen the URI movement to play its very important role in the world. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Abraham, thank you.
I wanted to mention one more thing. I was just reading Victor's message today, and it was so powerful and it was so appealing. Thank you, Victor, for bringing out such a beautiful message. Thank you.
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you for your opening.
Yes, Abraham, that was lovely. It is so good to be reminded of the glowworms everywhere and the possibility inherent in each one and in all of us as a connected network, and with all of the members of the cooperation circles in 109 countries around the world. And I appreciate your uplifting the hope and the possibility within URI.
Thank you.
I want to mention that Karen has said that she'll be joining us shortly, and Mamoon would wish to be with us, but he is in the emergency room with his mother, who will probably they're waiting the results of some scans, and she may need some surgery, but he sends his greetings to all of us. And there are a couple of faces on the call that will be unfamiliar to some of you. So I'll turn it to Victor first to make an introduction, please, Victor.
Great. So I want to welcome Fadi Hindi to our community here. Fadi is taking up the role of coordinator of marketing and external outreach. He comes with a really rich history in working in tech and in organizations and in social impact, and has brought energy and life to our world here already in the short time. And Fadi will be focused on outreach and creating a kind of vibrant outreach and marketing program, first looking towards the June gathering and the conference, and then beyond, working globally to really help articulate and bring the stories of URI to the surface in some new ways. But I don't know if you're able, are you able to join? Yeah, you are. Okay. I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit too, a little bit of your own history.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all. And I'm excited to meet everybody in June, in the next couple months. As Victor mentioned, I really came on board just because of the mission alignment in terms of kind of my upbringing in my own life and what URI does on this earth on a daily basis. And it's just incredible. I was in international relations, peace and justice studies in college and never got a chance to actually utilize the studies that I had done in school until now. And so I'm super excited. As Victor mentioned, my background has been heavily in tech in the last 5 years, and I've kind of done it across the entire gamut. And my goal for this year is to really utilize the URI network, find those stories that are incredible, that are kind of hidden gems that the world has not seen yet, and really bring them to life and show people what URI is all about and what this powerful network can do in this world, and how we can actually utilize both an interfaith dialogue plus action plans to really do good, to do more good in this community and create a long lasting impact. And that's kind of the story I want to. I'm going to need all your help, and I'm excited to meet all of you because I'm sure there's tons of stories to share. So I look forward to all of that.
Buddy, we just say a little word about the arc of your journey so that people have that context too?
Sure. So I originally was born in Baghdad, Iraq. I was born during the first Gulf War. And so I've lived some of the experiences that folks in the URI have seen. I was raised Roman Catholic in a 98% Islamic country. So we were religiously persecuted. My parents and I, we fled the country when I was 6 years old. And we went to Jordan, Amman, and from Jordan, we flew to Spain, and I lived in Spain for about 2 years. And then I came to the States when I was 8 years old. And when I came to the States, it was not easy, even though this was about 20 years ago now that I came. Everything that's happening currently in our administration now in the US, I lived through it. Got handcuffed as an 8-year-old, separated from my parents, put in immigration jail for about 2 weeks. And then eventually we were released, and we started our asylum process, which took about 10 years. And I didn't become a US citizen until I was a senior in high school. And I've seen it all in terms of what it's like to be isolated from different parts of communities, and what it's like to feel different. So that's why there's such a powerful mission alignment with.
Fadi, it's so great to have you with us, Fadi. Thank you for sharing those aspects of your story. And we're really excited to have you here. Thanks in advance for the great work you're going to help us do with the URI stories, working with Gia and others. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. And thank you for the honor for letting me to work on it.
So looking at our agenda for today, and let me say, Victor, were you going to say something?
Has Claudine been formally introduced to this wonderful community?
I was on the way there. I was just going to say that I can imagine that Fadi's story engenders lots of questions, and so it'll be great to have an opportunity to ask those when you see him in person in June. And the bulk of our agenda today is going to be spent on preparing for June, and then we're also going to have a little bit of time to talk about the Golden Rule Day. And before we get into the details of June, I do want to introduce Claudine. So as you all know, Diana has been working extremely hard, doing all kinds of managing and all kinds of details that wouldn't even come to my mind that need to necessarily be attended to, but are absolutely required to get everybody here and then to have everybody have a good experience while they're here. And Diana has called in a wonderful assistant to help her, whom I have the pleasure of supervising. So I want to say a very warm bienvenue to Claudine, who is the sister of Diana, Claudine Conan. She is working in our office she's been here for a couple of weeks, and she'll be here through our time together in June. So Claudine, would you like to introduce yourself briefly to the group?
Well, I think you've done a splendid job at that, and I feel very welcome. No, I'm very pleased to be in the action today. Can you hear me, by the way? Is everything working?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. This is a big first for me. I see faces next to names I've heard pronounced many times around the office, so this makes it very real for me. So I thank you for this wonderful welcome. And I look forward to doing my best for the June events.
It's so wonderful to have you here, Claudine. Thank you for all your help. And it's fun to see the sisterly resemblance in the office. You will all get a chance to see that firsthand in June. And I want to welcome Karen, who's joined, and Enoue, who's joined. Welcome. So,
Hi, everybody.
Victor, I'll turn it back to you to give us updates on June, please.
Great, and I think I'll, in a moment, turn to Diana to just, because our most important task at the moment is getting you all here. And the challenges of that are not small, and they have changed over these last few years. We've learned that particularly those applying for visas into the United States between the ages of 25 and 35, that the acceptance rate has gone, the denial rate has gone from about 40% to about 75%. So we are working with Subi and with a bunch of others to try to really step it up to get folks into the country. So getting everyone here, obviously we'll talk today much more about content and about the engagement, but you know, the importance of the leadership community coming together is so important. And so that is key. I want to also say that I have Musi here on my line on WhatsApp here. He's on my phone, and Maria has Emmanuel on WhatsApp there. So they also join us, even though you can't see them on the screen. Diana, let me turn it to you for, initially just to talk anything about logistics and any questions that anything you might have for Diana about that process.
So I have delayed a few of the flights, for instance, for Biswada and for one or two other people, because I am looking at, once the visa are approved, they might, and I'm just saying might, okay, be denied at entry. So I am trying to have people travel in pairs to the United States. That is, in pairs with people that have already traveled to the United States. And so that is what I'm working with right now. There are about 3 people whose visas were denied at this point. And we're working very closely with them right now to get them hopefully approved this time around. We have the help of Bishop Swing and as well as Secretary of State, former Secretary of State George Shultz, who are writing letters also and in support of the application. So hopefully that will work out. And I believe everyone otherwise on this call, if your visa has been approved and or if you already had the visa, you are already on the flight. So looking forward to that.
Any questions for Diana about the kind of getting here world? So appreciate everybody's hard work on this and support. Father James.
I want to congratulate Diana for the wonderful work she has done, and all taking care of all the details with regard to visa. And I express my sincere thanks to her. I have obtained visa for USA. I'm all set to fly.
Yay. Wonderful. Any other questions at this moment that would be helpful for us to engage? So the big work today is to kind of unfold the context of our gathering, to get input on some areas of the planning. Maria and Alice are part of the core planning team for the time together. We also have things happening around the conference. I thought I would kind of share with you these 2 things. I sent you these documents, but just to look at the context of our time together, and then to look at several of the questions that I posed, including how do we bring the energy and bring wisdom of our cooperation circles when we gather together, and then some very specific questions about kind of issues that we might engage as we look forward to that time. So let me throw up first the the schedule so you can see it. For those of you on phone or not on video, I will walk you through it as well, but you should have it in your emails too. So this is the schedule. You've seen this, you've received this. Arrivals will happen on June 21st and 22nd. A welcome dinner is June 22nd. That's our first event together. We're staying the first 2 nights at the Hilton Hotel near the airport, because on the 23rd, we come up here into San Francisco. We have our team building and orientation and kind of grounding time, in which we will also have a lovely dinner together on the coast and just be able to settle in the community and the beauty of being here. On the 24th, we will be transferring down to the Mercy Center in Burlingame. It's a Catholic retreat center. Some of you know it well. A wonderful space for us, beautiful space for us. We kind of take over the place, and we'll have our first day will be both the RC training day with Linda Stout and the Global Council meeting. So we're going to have those 2 days, those days where we're working separately at the very beginning and really kind of grounding and digging in. I think for those of you who've been working with Linda, the opportunity to be face-to-face with her and all together, it's really quite a wonderful and remarkable opportunity. So I'm very excited about that. On the 25th, we then have a program where we will be joined by local Bay Area and beyond Cooperation Circle leaders and members. We are working on a morning program that's really focused on appreciative inquiry, but also a deepening dialogue training program that we are working on to kind of deepen our own skills around dialogue facilitation. And then in the afternoon, to work in network groups, to divide up into environment, women's empowerment, peace building, youth leadership. We're going to be tapping some of you to help provide the leadership for those conversations about networks and about how our thematic networks can function across the URI network. Then we head down to Stanford, and we have 2 days of a massive international conference on interfaith action in peace building, and hosted by Stanford and including the Circles of Light and our partners from around the world, and a big thing which should be a wonderful experience of URI hosting, convening this global gathering on grassroots interfaith action. And then we have on the 28th and 29th, 2 deep dive days in which the full leadership team, staff and trustees, will work together on really the next stage of the core issues of operationalizing the strategic plan. And we have had some issues that have surfaced in the conversations of those working groups, primarily issues of growth and impact, how we understand growth, how we deal with growth, what growth looks like, and how we have maximum impact through our work. And then also issues related to the regional teams. What are the best practices for regional leadership teams? How do we understand these groups that have really evolved over the years in URI that didn't exist at the beginning of URI? And how do we learn what's our best ways of engaging and learning from each other? And then finally, really thinking about a 2020 as a year of renewal for URI, where we reach out to all cooperation circles across the network and re-engage them about what it means to belong to URI. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to lay out a couple of questions, and then we'll kind of return to conversation for a little bit, and then I'll come back and I'll walk through the conference. So imagining particularly our time together on that first day of team building and orientation on the Wednesday, and then we have the kind of the RC training day, and then we have the dialogue training and networking day, and then those last 2 days, those days when the staff and the trustees are together. We're looking at the strategic plan. We're looking at operationalizing it the way we already have begun to operationalize it in beautiful ways, but also what is most effective use of our time? What do you see as being crucial for those discussions, particularly around growth and impact, regional teams, and the renewing of URI? So I'm going to throw it open. You've had these kind of through email. Let's just brainstorm and collect some thoughts, some ideas that you want to put into the pot as we make all this happen. I'm going to ask somebody to take notes, so who'd be willing to do that? It's recording, but.
Yeah, I'll take notes.
Al, thanks. So as you think about that part of our time together, the leadership together, what things are you most hope will happen? What are your highest expectations or desires for that to happen? Jump right in. Abraham, you are on mute, sir.
I got you, Abraham, baby.
Yeah. So the most important question will be how to support the CCs, because we are not a small organization now. We are about 1,000 CCs now. There was a time when we were only 100 CCs, but we are 1,000. So CCs have great expectation, and so that will be the burning question: how to cope up with our growth, how we can best support our CCs.
So important. Bishwadev.
Thank you. Just adding to what Abraham just said is also how we can be more engaged and learn about helping CCs in terms of sustainability. What are the practices that we can help CC to be sustained locally?
And that feeds right into the question of what are the benefits of belonging to URI? How do CCs experience URI as essential to their life? What other thoughts as you think about these things?
Victor Despina.
Yes, Despina.
So I'm in the car and I can't put on my face because the area where I am, the network is not so good. But I hope you hear me and you imagine my face as being a beautiful one. So.
We hear your voice and
we do.
So beautiful. It's so true.
So first of all, I want to congratulate the team that put together this program. It is so beautiful, and I like the fact that we have 2 days where we are engaging people, and I like the discussants that are going to discuss during the 2 days. I like the fact that we have new faces in the discussion. And the fact that we also have our anchors like Victor and Musi in this discussion, because it also energizes the people in these discussions to feel they belong to URI, and it expands our network. So that was really, really very nice, the tentative program that we have. I also wanted to echo what Biswadeb and Abraham were saying about the CCs. I'm not going to repeat that, but I wanted to see how we really, really share. How are we going to bring the voices of the CCs and share their aspiration? What method are we using to share those voices for the CCs to feel part of the gathering that we are having? Because we all know that they used to be part of the meetings before, like through global meetings and stuff like that. Now they've grown in number. How do we continue to make them feel part of the conversations that we have face to face in order to own URI, to be part of URI, or to call themselves URI?
Great questions, Despina. Central questions. Let me say one word and then turn to Father James. And then this question that Despina is asking, I think, is worth for our staying on for a bit here about how we really are going to bring that to it. I will say, in terms of the conference will also be live streamed on our website. And so we can do a whole thing about people live streaming or watching segments of the conference. CCs can do watch parties, they can do other things about the conference, the 2 days at Stanford. But focusing on the other piece, that the URI components that are more focused, what do you think about it? What's the best way for us to bring those voices and to share out so that CCs feel connected? Father James, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I think it will be a wonderful opportunity to come together and bringing our experiences from all over the world, and also dealing, for example, regional coordinators dealing with CCs. One positive thing is that there's great joy to see number of CCs growing in our regions, and that shows that how our URI is making impact in our regions, and how more and more organizations and people, they are interested to become full-fledged members of CC, of URI, and have applied and are applying to become a CC. That is a good point, which is something that we rejoice that the number of CCs is growing in countries and altogether. My second point is a bit a crucial point, and that point is there are a few CCs, they are not active. They are not active CCs. I mean, contacting them, and the things which they do, or they will not respond, the email or the SMS, or they will not come for the meeting, or when, for example, in my context, we go there, but they are still absent, even if the program is in their own region or in their own city. And the issue is that there are some CCs, they only emerge when there is election of trustees. And before that, I mean, we don't see much their activities or their visibility, but when the election of trustees come, they will come up. So this is my question, and how to deal with this issue. I will seek the wisdom of others who are gathered in San Francisco.
And just to echo that, Sarah is saying that this is a big issue for her, for North America as well. She's put that in the chat box. So this is a huge issue, and it's such an important one. And, you know, on the one hand, you know, there's no really requirement for CCs in terms of their activity, or, and yet it does impact our life and our region. And how do we do that? Yeah. You know, there's a thought I had on, again, in terms of sharing about CCs. Last time we tried having the kind of regional tables and a kind of a fair, we had some positive and some not so positive kind of reaction to that in terms of its effectiveness. There was another suggestion that we might, you know, when we begin each session with a regional something, that region might actually introduce us to one CC, to in depth. Get to know a CC from a region. And so we might actually, rather than try to, you know, represent the, you know, tens or hundreds of CCs in any particular zone or region, maybe we get to know a few CCs, maybe one from each region in depth, and one that's illustrative of the region. I don't know, that was an interesting suggestion somebody made in one of our meetings. Other thoughts on what Father James and Despina have offered? In the way.
Hi to everyone. I also congratulate Diana and people that works in this program. I think it's a very good program. I was thinking, I'm going to have next week on Monday a meeting with my regional leadership team, okay? And there we are going to exchange ideas of what we are going to do in June, okay? But now, after reading the program and your questions, I think it would be a good idea before the meeting to call CCs. I had in the past for the plan this activity, and it was successful. And I think CCs feel part of URI. They feel included. Is what I'm thinking to propose on Monday to my team, to do like a large meeting. If they come 20 CCs, it's okay, or anyway, to hear them to make them feel part of this meeting in June. And another idea that I had after reading your questions is that we can practice what we did with Matthew, Sari, and all the people who work on that for the Golden Role Day. Maybe we can have videos, short videos from some members from different CCs, so we can share with all of you the diversity of the regions, okay? And for the tables that was another question that you have in your mail. I think it's a huge work for the office, and we have a crowded agenda, and we don't really have time to see what in the tables are. So I'm the idea that don't do this year.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are really helpful suggestions all around. Subi.
Victor, I just wanted to call your attention that Emmanuel wants to say something when you give him the voice.
We'll go Subi and then Emmanuel.
So I want to understand two things since we're together. One is our relations with the UN, and if their local CCs want to contact them, what is the relevance? What do the MOUs look like? Is there anything our local CCs can benefit from? Who are the points of contacts we can reach to? Is there anything of that sort that exists? So this is one that I would want to understand. Second is the roles and responsibilities of RCs and trustees. So since there's been new elections, and I think there are newer trustees, so it will be really nice if there can be some kind of briefing up sessions for each regional teams.
Great, absolutely, Subi. And on the first note, a number of our UN partners will be at the conference too, so we're looking to create some special time around that. We may have some of them coming a day early so that they'll be part of the day before with us. So we'll also do a kind of a one-pager on that kind of how do you connect to the UN and what are the benefits through that. And Monica and Musi and I have been working on that.
Just one last thing that I had to add to the list was the representation of youngsters in the network. That's a concern.
Exactly. Now, you should know that we are inviting a group of 8 additional young leaders from around the world who will be joining us for a chunk of time, including the Tuesday program and Wednesday, Thursday, and that certainly at the conference we are featuring young leaders in every panel, every part of the program, which is really important. So we've been working on that. Emmanuel. Oh, Subi, your second piece was I was going to say something about that. What was that one?
That was on regional leadership teams and trustees and RCs.
And I threw out there this somewhat provocative thing that I've been saying, about our roles as staff, and when people say URI is coming to visit us, what does that mean? How do we feel about that and all of that? And I want us to really dig in on that while we're together, because this is a whole, it's a moment for URI, and URI meaning the CCs, the trustees as a representative of the CCs and the staff, to really think about how does this reflect our deepest values? How do we want to proceed? What does that mean? What are the implications? These are all questions about our own self-determination as a community. These answers are not going to come from anyone. They're not going to come from me. They're not going to come from the central office or the global council. They're a process that we need to discover together about how do we reflect this beautiful grassroots belief that we have. So those are going to be, I think, important things for us to engage together when we are together. Emmanuel, you are on mute, Maria, too.
I know, but I'm calling him. Emmanuel, are you there? Emmanuel?
Yes, I'm here. I'm on the line.
Good.
Good. Say what you have to say.
Yeah, I think first of all, I really want to join everyone in commending Diana and the team for such an excellent organization. And I know that preparing for a big event like this is not easy, but the level of commitment we can see it very clearly. I think in addition to what the Spina and Father James said, I know that most of us species really are interested in attending the meeting we've been discussing. And one way I think we can bring their voices together at the global meeting, I think I can share that document also by email after the conversation. I have this all the CCs about the meeting that is coming up in June, and then asking each of the CCs to mention what they want the URI leadership to know about their needs, their challenges during the meeting. So what I'm doing is to collect all the details from all the CCs and then put it together in the form of a document. And that document now will represent the voices of all the CCs, especially within West Africa here. And so when I bring that document to the meeting, it represents the fact that all the CCs are actually present at that meeting. But each of them will have a voice that will be taken to the meeting, and I'll put everything together and then take it. So I think one way, even though it is difficult, it's not possible to bring all the CCs together, but one way we can get them represented is by collecting their voices in the form of a document. And then that can be shared even during the meeting.
Excellent. Really good. And, you know, one of the things that's important to remember, it was a long time ago, and then Karen, I'll come right to you. It seems a long time ago, but when we started this whole strategic planning process, you know, 3 decades ago, it seems like, we started by going out to the CCs and collecting information. We had, I think, you know, 300 or 400 different priorities that were suggested by CCs and suggested by regions. And so it all filtered down. And one of the mistakes that happens for a lot of organizations is they collect, but they don't give back. They don't connect back, so that the people, in our case, the CCs, don't have that sense that their input actually landed anywhere. So being able to do this, collect, make videos, do all those kinds of things, I think is using the new technologies in these ways so that people can feel connected, as well as being live connected in some way, is really important. Karen, you are on mute.
Hello, Victor. Hello, everyone. And indeed, congratulations to the team for all the hard work on putting the program together. And to Diana, it's got to be hair-raising organizing all those visas and flights. And so, yeah, it's off to all of you. And I hear my fellow RC speaking and really appreciate how all of us hold the CCs close to our hearts. And the one thing I wanted to also ask was that, is there a way of reaching out to the cooperation circles and inviting them into the gathering by live streaming them, giving them 5 minutes to bring a success story of interfaith from their CC? And perhaps out of each of the regions, 2 CCs could be chosen, whatever, you know, or selected based on work they've done in the past year. Because I know for myself that when we've had the Zoom calls and put CCs together, there's so much that comes out of that meeting. And yet it's a challenge with also the time zones always to get everyone on. But I think if we focus efforts, it could be a way to bring the CCs into our gathering rather than it be, I want to call it like a staff gathering, but really what we're trying to do is gather the CCs. And so it's kind of trying to turn it on its head a little bit and bring I hear the voice about bringing the CCs into the meeting. Having a video, having a report is still not them being present. And how do we make them present? And is there a way that we could find to do that? Thank you very much.
That's great. You know, and a couple of thoughts. That's a wonderful idea. And I think, you know, obviously there's technological challenges, but these challenges we're more and more able to meet them, which is great. So I think we should be able to think creatively around that. The other thing is, you know, there are these two shapes of gathering. There's the leadership gathering that has emerged in the last 5 years, which you know, it used to be the global council gathering and staff were kind of present or not present. But now it's a leadership gathering. It's the staff and trustees together, and then including some members of the President's Council and the Foundation Board. And that's one kind of gathering. The other thing, as we think about 2020 or a renewal of sorts, is that, you know, why not create some massive online experience where we gather as many CCs as possible over a 24-hour period or something. I mean, we could think really big about how do we get people online together live, as Karen's saying, with some kind of a massive effort, sort of like the, what was it called, Maria? The 72 hours of prayer that you all did. Is that right?
Yeah, we had two circumstances, 72 hours, and then we had an anniversary that was calling all CCs. And at that time, we didn't have Zoom, so it was kind of sending emails. Remember, Sally? It was something that has to do with light. Shine the light.
Lights up the world. And we had CC sending postcards to other CCs. We had them choosing how they would connect and help build up another CC. And yeah, it was a good, very tangible, non-techie effort.
That's great. Well, I think this is, you know, both, as Karen's suggesting, for the gathering, but then also thinking about the future. And can we redesign the global assembly in a way that uses virtual space as well as physical space to do it? So these are great ideas.
I have something, Victor. Actually,
Sally, it's hard. For some reason, it's hard to hear you online. I can hear you because you're in the other room here, but I don't know why the.
Oh, can I? Is this better?
It's okay.
Okay. Well, two things. Relational. We know that what makes us is our relationships. And I just want to remind us too, even though it may not need reminding, the quality has to do with what's inside of us. The morning walks, the silent time, the looking at each other in a way that we know that we are more than just doers. We are beers and we are being transformed. So I would like this feeling to continue, especially with people who are new, in ways that feel like they weave well into the action plan of what's going on. Okay, number two is it's happening here already, but you know, it's about appreciatively inquiring about connectivity. We can't stay in the old design form of send out emails to CCs, ask if they'll send them back. We have to create and think about new prototypes of connectivity, because we have 1,000 now and it may be 2,000. So instead of seeing the problem in that, is to create these kind of brainstorming, appreciative conversations where everybody there is coming up with new ideas. We would never have circles if we didn't prototype a plan for how even a circle would work. So now I think we should enjoy ourselves creating connectivity between all these groups.
That's great, Sally. You know, and that sense of the arc of URI's growth, and the moments when URI in the past could have said, you know, no more growth. We don't want to grow anymore. It's kind of confusing our system. Well, how can we dream that if this is a movement and the movement requires that it spreads to more and more communities, then what are some of the systems we can use that enable us to do that may transform the way we do our work? And those are great questions. They're not easy ones, but they're great questions. Subi.
So something that I'm going to be doing at my regional assembly this weekend is create a video montage of all the CCs that are going to come and capture maybe 2 or 3 lines that like as a note essentially to everybody at the global office. Yeah. So that's something that we are planning to do, and let's see how this goes.
And maybe framing it not only the global office, but to sisters and brothers from all regions, so that who will be gathered. That would be beautiful. Karen.
Am I? No, I'm not muted. Okay. Victor, one of the challenges that I have found, and maybe I'm sure other people have as well, is that our communication is very intra-URI. And one of the things I would like us to address is how do we take URI out there? So we tell each other about URI, and but how do we tell the world about URI? And so, like, our newsletters go to RCCs, and which, you know, that's RCCs, you know, we're letting each other know. But one of the things I found, Facebook is one way, but that's not as, you know, where's our broader database of people, organizations, you know, we've got friends of URI database. They're not CCs, they're people who just want to know what we do. And we send out to them, which is sometimes how we attract donations and so on. But how do we do that as a broader URI? How do we do that? Because I think attracting those smaller donors that can come in and support various CCs with particular things has made a massive impact in my region. It's created a lot of excitement. And how can we maybe do something like that? Thank you.
So this is a perfect bridge into talking about one of the reasons why we decided to have this international conference, bringing together our external partners from all over the world to be in conversation about how this movement, both the URI movement, but also the broader interfaith movement, moves out into connection with other partners, other sectors of society, NGO sectors, policymaking sectors, government sectors, private sectors, other partners, all those kinds of things. So I want to say just a word about the two areas of priority for this two-day conference at Stanford, and then imagine yourselves taking that question that Karen just posed and having conversations throughout those 2 days with external partners and with each other about how we can move from a more inward-facing URI to also a more outward-facing without losing that beautiful relational quality of our internal life. We also open outward, as Karen is offering. So, two things. One of which is this beautiful next step, this natural step for URI as an organism, as a movement, as an organization, of having nurtured and incubated its internal life, opening out like a flower, right? So you imagine the kind of the lotus that comes up through the water and then opens up when it sees the sunlight and opens up. So URI, part of this conference, is to really open up URI to the world. And almost every speaker on that list, which you have, are people who know URI. So Adama Dieng, Under Secretary General for the United Nations, the Office of Genocide Prevention, he uses URI as an example often in his talks about why interfaith action is important. Aza Kazam from the UNFPA, UN Population Fund, Women's Empowerment, Women's Life and Health. Aza probably knows URI better than almost anybody outside of URI. Valerie Kaur, Sikh human rights activist, this amazing movement, Revolutionary Love. She knows URI really well. So part of our goal here is not just to have URI people talk about ourselves as though we're sort of promoting ourselves, which is not sort of the URI way, but rather, how do we set up a situation where we're the hosts and we're the kind of catalyst, but where other people talk about the importance of interfaith action, but also can speak to the importance of URI. And so that's true. That's important for a couple of reasons. One of which is it sets up this question that Karen's asking about. How do we make real, how do we operationalize that external relations? But the other thing it doesn't, this is a challenge that we've faced since I came on board here, which I'll just briefly describe. When we came on board, URI was almost exclusively funded by a very small group of people who funded URI because of their relationship with Bill. Because Bill Swing had built these beautiful connections, and they supported URI because of Bill. Well, in the long term, that's not sustainable, right? I mean, those people don't live forever, and they are not connected to the mission of URI. They're really connected to the person who they love and who they support. So we've been trying over time to broaden that donor base and to connect our donors to the mission of URI, to the cooperation circles, understanding URI. When I first came, Biff's been trying to do this for years. The members of the President's Council, if you ask them about URI, they couldn't tell you anything about URI, really. They just would say, well, we do what Bill says because we believe in Bill. This conference is also an opportunity for our existing donors and new prospective donors and members of URI to experience URI on a level that they've never experienced before, both personally by interacting with you all and with the trustees, but also in this larger context where URI is being celebrated by people all over the world. So I want you to be really understand that there is an organizational piece of this that's about massively broadening the support for URI, because we would not be sustainable as an organization had we not started that about 3 years ago and had we not really stepped that up. And thanks to Diana and Biff and everybody who's been working on that project. But I did want you to kind of know that, because we are reaching out to a lot of new prospective donors, younger donors, tech industry, others around the United States and beyond. And so part of the positioning of that international gathering is so people can connect to URI in a more personal way, if that makes sense.
Victor, when we were in the P19 visit in Brazil, there was a good conversation about critical mass, in thinking that URI is not only bringing URI or not only touching the leaders, but it's grassroots, because if we want to change the world, the only thing of doing that is expanding, and that there are more people that know about URI and share interfaith commitment. So I think that the growth has to do with that also, just to reaching every corner, reaching groups and people that will be influencing their communities. And I think this is a step forward, and a fantastic step forward.
Great. And how, quite frankly, from my perspective, we've been squeezing, water out of a rock with very little resources to try to do the amazing work that we've already been doing. So there is a resourcing question. URI, I believe, if I'm echoing accurately the aspirations of URI never wants to be about building a big central organization, institution. That's not what URI set out to do. It set out to be a network, to be decentralized, where power was distributed. So it's not about building a big at the center. In fact, we've been getting pretty lean at the center this last few years. But it is about resources, and all kinds of resources. The UN partner resources that Subi was talking about, the resources that RC challenged to, collect to try to just do the basic work. So resourcing URI is another topic clearly that we're engaged in, and we will talk about together. Bishudeb.
Thank you. One of the things that we used a lot, appreciative inquiry, and it helped to strengthen the relationship. That was really still it's a gift, and we used a lot in the local areas. And I find that people always come up with a conflict, but also have the responses. So strengthening relationship, people always come up with solution. Just one of the example I did recently, we used appreciative inquiry process to strengthening relationship in a way to unlocking the energies that people feel URI is a sensation. So that little idea of sensations, people with so many solutions, and they come up with really great energies of addressing various issues. Then, so this is what we got a lot of benefit using a smaller way of appreciative inquiry at the local level. And I wish that maybe at global level that we still use really in our connection, and that's what's really the beauty of this network.
That's great, Bishudeb. That's great. Other thoughts, other comments? I want to do just a tiny bit on the conference itself, but Any other thoughts? And continue to feed this, right? Feed it through Matt and Maria and Alice. Come directly to me. Whatever you want to do, keep these thoughts going. This is a creative design, right? I mean, this is an emergent design process. We'll be designing even while we're there together. We want to be flexible and open enough so that we can really follow the inspiration and what we're doing in terms of our time together. So that's really important. Karen.
Victor, are we also talking about the questions? Are we reflecting on the questions that you posed in your email?
Yes, so NOA touched on the regional tables and thinking not so much about the usefulness of that. We also had a question about the regional offerings and the prayers before every session, and what do you think about that?
Yeah.
And, go ahead.
I wanted to talk about the sessions, like the offerings.
Yes.
I would love for us to do the morning and probably if people want in the evening, but maybe not after every session, because I look at that as time goes a lot into this into the offerings, and then we have little time to be together and so much to talk about. I'm not saying the offerings are not respected, but I'm just looking at the time that we have, because there was a moment when we really wanted to dig into some discussion over some key issues. Especially I'm looking at the last 2 days. They are really so crucial for us to put our minds together and discuss about the work before we come back. And sometimes we take like 30 minutes. If the discussions were according to African way of doing stuff, we just continue with what is amusing and what is going well. But now when we have something like the way how things are done in the West, we stick to time, and we end up like leaving out a lot of discussions that we would want to continue doing. So I don't know how people think about that, but I would love us to continue with the morning, but not necessarily the session ones.
Great. Karen.
Victor, one of the things that our CCs always ask us about is funding and looking for support for funding. Many of, certainly in my region, and I'm sure in others, the CCs are small, they're on the ground, or maybe even if they're big. But if they're a smaller CC, they don't have the capacity to access funders, donors. Donors nowadays have, these application forms in triplicate and all kinds. It's really complex and not easy. I was wondering if, as URI, we actually formed a resource team around standardized documentation for fundraising, so that when we have, projects on the ground, is there a way that we can support that CC with putting a proposal together, working with someone in the CC who's appointed, and then helping them complete documentation? Could there be one person per region, or maybe 4 in the world, or I don't know, just in some way of helping some of the CCs that are not registered as NGOs. Like in Malawi, it can take them 3 years to get registered as an NGO or longer. Anyway, so those are that's just the thought that I've just had. Thank you.
Karen, we've been thinking the same thing. It's really, I think this is emerging as one of the most important things for CCs that they don't have access to. And so when we're developing this on several fronts, one of which is we're just developing new relationships, close relationships with funding streams and with the kind of big funders. I'm going to be in Copenhagen next week at this PARD conference, which is the Religion and Development Conference. We are now a PARD member. That's huge streams of potential funding. So Biff and I are working on that. Diana and Biff are working on some of the new relationships to foundation partners. But what you're suggesting, I think, is the key to this, which is, can we imagine a kind of a team of people within URI who are available to consult to RCs or to CCs directly, who can help navigate through this bloody complicated process of fundraising, and particularly for the smaller groups that have no, internal capacity in terms of staffing or whatever to do that. I think that's a great idea.
Victor, may I just add that you know, if they're raising the funds, there's a percentage of funds that can go to that person that's helping to put that together. So there's a way of funding. In other words, it's not going to come out of a budget to pay someone, but is there then a way in terms of them helping with the funding? And sometimes the funders they're small funders, but even so, they want the assurance that the money's going to go and do what they've been asked to do, and you know, so on. So anyway, it's something to be fleshed out, I guess.
So one of the things, just the context to put that in, and is one of the things of having gotten really lean in the GSO and having really cut back on staff here, is that as we imagine the future of URI, I imagine that we may look very different, and we might have people who are doing more global work like what you're suggesting on a local level, but with these global themes like fundraising or network development or other things, who may be floating in the system. I remember Sally actually was dreaming about this some time ago. She talked to me about these more people floating in the system who had particular skills that were essential for CC. So anyway, think out of the box. You know, as this is a really good time for us to imagine different out of the box about as we move forward. Okay, let me do one quick thing, and then I got to pass it on to Diana to do some people are writing in the notes. I want to point everybody to some of Matt's comments in the notes, and Vishwadev's and Subi's. So there's comments to read there. Let me just put up on the here for a minute conference piece here. And this is really draft form, right? This is like, it's a flexible, movable feast. We have lots of people who've now confirmed their attendance, which is wonderful. But the thing I sent you, please don't share broadly at all, because it's very much of a movable part. Some people will come out, some people will come in. There's too many people in certain places. But I wanted to give you a sense of the people outside of URI who are also connected. I'll just mention a few here. You notice about the conference that it's now based on 3 areas of URI's purpose statement: promoting enduring daily interfaith cooperation, ending religiously motivated violence, and building cultures of peace, justice, and healing. So the whole structure takes on a URI feel to it. Unlike most conferences, we will gather with opening ceremony and an AI. We start with an AI right in the room. You know, imagine 400 people in this conference hall at Stanford. And we're going to start with an AI exercise where people are really thinking about what they want to learn through those 2 days, what are the questions they bring. And so we start right in there before we go into an opening session, thinking about interfaith peace building from dialogue to action. And some of these names you'll know, some you won't. Jen Bailey, who's this incredible African-American pastor, director of the Faith Matters Network, Radiak Bachuk from Coexiste, Mohammed El Sanusi, who's the director of the Network of Religious and Traditional Peacemakers, Audrey Kitagawa, old URI person, Phil Lane. We've got people who have offered to be a part of this, and so we're kind of creating that together. But then comes the first of many sessions that we're going to have URI leaders, including yourselves, facilitating at tables. The lunch will be a discussion group at tables facilitated by a URI staff member or Bay Area CC leader. And so all of this is being created around those facilitated discussions. Pato Bata and Antoinette Rudstata will be with us. They are amazing musicians, URI musicians, who will be giving us music throughout the day. Then the Voices, Freight Nuclear Weapons will do their thing. And I'm so happy that Kehkashan Basu, this 18-year-old, incredibly powerful founder of the Green Hope Foundation, she's going to be speaking. We then do a section on religiously motivated violence, and Adama Dieng will be kicking it off, and Aza Karam will be moderating a panel, and we've got some partners and URI people there, you see. In the evening, we have this rather unusual situation, and URI being at Hoover at Stanford anyway is unusual. On the one hand, we're returning to Stanford after 24 years to really come back. At the same time, the Hoover Institution has a pretty conservative reputation, and so we're partnering with someone who's not exactly like us, and that is exemplified in this conversation between Bill Swing and Jim Mattis, former Secretary of Defense for the United States, founder and president of URI, talking about the imperative of peace from the perspective of a bishop and a general, and why interfaith peace building is so important. And the military perspective, that the military gets involved only after peace has failed. And so it's a very interesting dialogue they'll have, which will lead us into Circles of Light, where we're going to be celebrating the kickoff of our 20th anniversary. We'll be honoring George and Charlotte Schultz, who are longtime members of URI and helping make this whole thing possible. And we'll be giving out Global Peace Building Awards. The first recipients of the URI Global Peace Building Partners Awards, these are not our internal awards, but external awards, will be the Office of Genocide Prevention, UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, and Revolutionary Love, this grassroots, young leaders-oriented movement. On the second day, we come back together. Members of the indigenous communities lead us in a Waters of the World ceremony. Then we have a discussion and dialogue around women's empowerment and environmental sustainability. Sadhvi Saraswati from the Global Wash Alliance, brilliant, amazing speaker, will be kind of kicking that off. The Women's Earth Alliance folks have a new video that they're going to be showing, which includes some of the work that we've been doing in the Ripple Academy. And then Kieran will be facilitating conversations, small conversations in the auditorium between people that will then open up into discussion of the whole. We then move into some of our partners on the global level, talking about why partnering with the grassroots is important. And this is where the funding piece comes into that Karen was talking about. So here we have Asia Foundation, Peace Jam, Religious Freedom and Business Foundation, U.S. Institute for Peace, Give to Asia, and PARD, the International Partnership on Religion and Development, each saying a few words about why they believe in the grassroots and why the grassroots is important. Then we go to a session on from Next Gen to Gen Now, young voices of leaders who also, you notice, are on every panel. Every panel has at least one youth voice on the panel, and then, or younger leader voice. Then we have this discussion over lunch, which all leads up to the call to action keynote by Valerie Kaur, and a call to action discussion groups where people develop action plans as they return to their communities, followed by closing ceremony and closing blessing. So, power-packed conference. On the one hand, it looks a little more formal, but I think there's a strategy to that, both because we're bringing some formal, bigger institutions together on this, but then we also create the kind of relational conversations and dynamics that URI is so powerful at. And so that's the gig right now, and it's a wild ride. It is, we are deep into this whole thing, doing everything, the face-to-face, the conference, the Circles of Light, you know, it's extraordinary. And obviously, we all bow down in deep regard to Diana, who is holding so many details and doing them brilliantly. And with Claudine and with the team here, it's happening. It's happening. So today is going out a new set of emails, which has information. If you want to forward it to anybody, please do, both internationally or within the United States who you know who might attend. We will have international folks coming as well. All those logistics are being handled through our office here. So that's the deal. That's where we are. I think it's strategic at this moment, both internally and externally. We're leveraging this conference to deepen partnerships, to create new partnerships, to attract new donors, to put URI a little more on the map as an international convener. And so all that's is what we've been up to. And it should be fun. I want it to be fun. And if Subi doesn't get her visa, we're moving the whole thing to Delhi.
Exactly.
The whole thing to Delhi. We'll all go to Delhi and we'll be with you there, Subi.
And I will make sure that everyone can travel to India.
Yeah, you just have to do like extra work for everybody to come here now.
Any questions before we kick it to the Golden Rule piece to close us out? Father James.
One thing I feel that this timetable is very full. It looks very hectic. And I'm wondering that there are some people who are used to have siesta after lunch. It seems like 12:30.
No siesta.
No more siesta. Lot of sacrifice.
No, you're absolutely right.
Where will be my siesta?
8 in the morning until 8 at night.
Yes, 12 hours non-stop.
We'll have a secret cot in the room.
Yeah. So don't. I mean, you should wake us up when we are snoring after lunch.
We just have to dance. We break into dance.
Yes. Other thing, Victor, you said the last point. Can we invite somebody like from America who is very much interested in the work of URI and may want to join at some time?
Absolutely,
Okay.
and on several different levels, we've really reduced the cost of the conference very, very low. So in terms of a conference, it's not an expensive thing for most people.
Right.
Circles of Light, we've also reduced, but that's still, But if there are special friends, special guests that you want to invite, please talk to Diana directly, because we do have some spaces that we can make available to folks. And that's true with the President's Council. It's true with others as well. So if you all have people who you'd like to have be there, please do let us know. We'll send you out this email that you can also forward to anybody.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I want to jump to Golden Rule Day. So let's take Subi and then we'll jump to Golden Rule Day.
Yeah, I just quickly want to say that if I get the visa, which I hope I will, I am ready to offer myself to facilitate any session or help wherever possible.
Thank you, Subi. We're counting on. We're counting on, and for everybody, I think, when you think about the amount of time we're going to spend in circle groups around tables and things like that, we really want those to be facilitated, and we want those to be facilitated by you, and we'll have a whole training thing on that. So that'll be clear. Okay, who am I turning to? Matt?
Indeed, it is I. Thanks, Victor. All right, so just to kind of quickly close this out, Musi and I, and perhaps Gia, will just want to update you a little bit about Golden Rule Day. Now, as you probably all know, Golden Rule Day is something that URI, especially Musi, has been keenly involved in for many years. Of course, it's about more than the day itself, about mainstreaming the ethic of the Golden Rule, across the kind of NGO world and through, society as well, through education programs and so on. And that's something that Musi is working on, day in, day out. But for Golden Rule Day itself, URI was involved in a sort of all-day webcast, which we streamed live on Facebook in chunks that largely corresponded to time zones, continents, etc. And I'll say a little bit about that. Musi will say a few words about some of the other things that the URI community was involved in for Golden Rule Day. And Gia can say a few words about the kind of website and the content that we've collected from our community around that day and what we might be doing with it and where it is that you can go see it. So this started last year, where actually SERI partnered URI North America with a couple of organizations. And this year we kind of took it global, although SERI was still very much very much involved. So we partnered with quite a few partners, but the main ones being the Charter for Compassion, which you probably all be familiar with, and the Golden Rule Project, which kind of runs this 24-hour video webcast. It's an organization in its own right. It's supposed to run for 24 hours. It actually ran for 26 hours because we had so many video offerings. We also had a couple of things happen the day before. So Musi had an event in Jerusalem, which hopefully you'll be able to say a quick word about. And we sort of put up a video from Abraham as a bit of a taster the day before. We gave an awesome sort of video lecture on the Golden Rule in Scriptures, which also kind of preceded his Holy Books conference, and it was fantastic. So a whole bunch of CCs from around the world sent in videos for the webcast itself, and these ranged from really short highlight reels of their activities to musical performances, through to full-blown documentaries and interviews. And I'd say that of the footage that got aired across those 26 hours, considering how many partners and contributors sent stuff in, I would say URI contributions accounted for about 20% of it, which is really, really big. Like really big, like disproportionately large footprint in this webcast, which is really, really cool. All the videos are still available to watch, even though they're streamed live. So I definitely recommend checking them out if you haven't yet. You'll be able to get at them through the URI Facebook page and the Charter for Compassion's Facebook page. And all of the individual videos that CCs sent in, we're also kind of gathering and beginning to organize and put online. Gie'll say more about a little bit about that in a sec. But also to say that, you know, we did a little bit of boosting of the sort of reach of these videos. And at sort of the last time I checked, it looked like these videos had reached about 1 million people so far through Facebook. That's a huge exposure for our CCs. So that's just really, really awesome. Now, that's not necessarily 1 million people have watched hours and hours of content, but it's getting our stuff out there. It's really, really, really cool. Sari and I were sort of guest hosts for a couple of the sections, kind of like saying, well, this is what you're about to watch. It's both nerve-wracking and exciting. And loads of URI faces appeared across the day. And a really big Indigenous voice involved. There was a whole sort of section of time zones kind of set aside for Indigenous voices, and they were interspersed throughout the rest of the day as well, including lots of people who were involved in URI that you would recognize. Gia, do you want to say anything quickly about the kind of videos and where things are and where people can go look for them?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, as Matt mentioned, they are on the Facebook page, but since you know, it can be hard to scroll down the Facebook page, it's good to go on the website where they're, you know, just search for Golden Rule Day. You'll see URI celebrates Golden Rule Day on our blog. And you can see all of the videos are also hosted on that page, and there's a nice listing of all of our URI celebrations on that page.
Awesome. Thanks, Gia.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I think the plan is also to get all of the sort of individual videos up on our YouTube channel, right? So yeah, Alice, if you are able, I think you've got Musi there on the line. So Musi, I'd invite to speak. Oh, Victor wanted to say something first.
I'm going to jump off, and actually a group of us who are on this call have a meeting starting at 9:30, a planning meeting for the conference. So I just want to make note of that. But continue on, and you know, Alice and Maria, join us when you're able. I'm just going to jump off and start that call. It's brilliant. It's wonderful to see you all, and I can't wait to see you in person and be together. That makes this whole work have a sense of grounding and beingness in terms of when our hearts are connected and when we're face to face, it changes everything. So we'll continue to work to get everyone here. And we thank you so much for your engagement this morning, and keep it coming, because this is an evolving process. Not just the conference, but the next years of our work together. So we gotta make it together, make it up together. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks,
I will-
Victor.
Thank
Bye,
you.
folks who are leaving us at this moment. So yes, Alice, if you can connect us to Musi, if he is there.
So he just dropped, but it's ringing to bring him back.
Okay.
He's been listening.
Yes, he's sort of standing by, and knows what to say. If it takes more than a couple of minutes and we don't get him, I will just briefly share what he's, a small fraction of what he's been doing that I feel qualified to talk about in vague terms.
Yeah.
Maybe you can be talking about it.
Yes, I think that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Despina. Yeah. So I'll just kind of fill you in. Obviously, as you know, Musi is very active in working on our global partnerships, with Victor and with others, of course. And, we got statements from, the UN and from other organizations for Golden Rule Day itself, all of which Musi has shared across the network and which you'll find on the website as well. And on April 4th, so the day before Golden Rule Day, Musi actually, along with Alana Rosenman, Eliyahu McLean, and other, well-known beloved peacemakers in Jerusalem, held an event at Alana's house with international and MENA friends, and CCs and Mamoun and Jordan sent, their messages. Musi was in the country for a couple of meetings as well with government ministries about trying to get Golden Rule, in education programs and so on. And I think he shared a little bit about that gathering, and Alana, I think, has shared about it too on the global listserv. So check that out as well. And they recorded a whole bunch of videos as well, which we shared the day before Golden Rule Day, which were included on the day.
So one thing that both Emmanuel and Musi show us that we are a community and that we have struggles with communication, and that we have to have in mind those that are more difficult to be connected. But as Abraham said in his story today, we are all light, and we have to be bold and courageous to bring that light to a world that it has too much darkness. So the light that you have brought to this call, the light that you bring to your communities is really appreciated. And if we are together, we are a fire. And thank you for being that. And all love to this small fires around the world.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you all for being here. So good to be with you all. See you in June.
Shine.
Yes, bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, Musi.
Bye.
Bye.
Sotrat, sleep well.